There's a place I know that I hold near and dear to my heart called Browntown. Now, you may have never been there, but once you hear about it, you could swear that you've been on its streets before. You've seen the streetlights, smelled the air, heard the hustle and bustle of its people going about their days. It's not the biggest town or the most prestigious, and it isn't getting much notice for being the best at anything in particular for that matter. But it sure isn't the scariest or dirtiest, most boring place either. You can pick any part of town and find something to do, or at the very least, someone interesting to talk to. But if you want my opinion, there's only one part of town that can truly make you understand the feeling I get whenever I'm there. Let me tell you a little something about downtown Browntown.
A few years back, Browntown voted to ban the sale of commercially bred animals at pet stores. This move seemed to come out of nowhere, as Browntown has never had any pet shops other than pet supply businesses. As far as residents were concerned, this was more of a move to deter future businesses from following the practice. Spearheading this agenda was local shelter owner Michelle LaDue of We Are Family Animal Rescue. For as long as most residents can remember, Michelle has been the only show in town when it came to anything animal related. Whether it's your first dog, next cat, or another reptile for your menagerie, Michelle has been bitten by, reared from birth, or rescued it from an impossibly weird situation. We Are Family Animal Rescue has a rather interesting history behind it. Upon its initial opening, it found itself on the receiving end of a lawsuit over the use of the letter R instead of the word in their name. The suit claimed the rescue was infringing upon the intellectual property of a now bankrupt corporation, and so the name was changed to avoid any complications. However, the moment that corporation went under, the A and E were off of the sign and all legal documentation faster than anyone would likely believe. Rumor has it, Michelle had a draft of all the necessary paperwork prepared years in advance, just waiting for the moment she could have everything the way she originally wanted it. Other rumors include that she put a curse on the company the day after she received the initial cease and desist, and that she swore undying hatred towards giraffes until the end of either their species or her life. And that the initial lawsuit hadn't even been legitimate, and was just a prank by a local kid who was experimenting with their newly found passion for writing legal documentation. Whether any of these rumors hold water is yet to be seen, but when pressed for an answer, Michelle typically rolls her eyes and attempts to force whoever is asking to either become a volunteer or adopt a new best friend. Originally started by Michelle out of her back porch in Uptown, We Are Family Animal Rescue has come a long way from its humble beginnings. After driving around the city during the weekend with a van and a large net, Michelle found herself with quite a few lost or abandoned animals, along with some wild animals which were eventually released back into the wild. Apparently, Michelle wanted to create an animal shelter for Browntown, but lacked the animals in need of shelter. So, rather than going through other channels or networking with existing shelters in other cities, she went out and got them herself. After a few interesting phone calls and meetings with various medical, psychological, and legal professionals, she got exactly what she wanted. Her neighbors weren't incredibly thrilled with the notion of the shelter suddenly existing, but seeing Michelle's tenacity, they weren't going to try to stop her. Within her first year operating out of her house, Michelle had found homes for hundreds of animals, and had put on several extensions to her house to accommodate the near constant influx of newcomers. Eventually, Michelle ran out of room on her property and, to the silent delight of her neighbors, moved her operations to South Brown. She took an open lot and converted it into a compound that would be able to house more animals than anyone would think to keep in one area. Whether they were strays from Browntown itself or the surrounding towns, Michelle was ready to house them until she could connect them to a new family. Beginning in the second year of operations at We Are Family Animal Rescue, Michelle began recruiting volunteers to help her manage the massive undertaking of her new space. She began by aggressively offering weekend shifts to high school students as a community service opportunity. Soon after, this became an after-school program as well, so she would have enough hands to handle the workload properly throughout the week. The workload increased dramatically with the compound as Michelle immediately pursued her goals of helping as many animals as she could, which did not stop at domestic household pets. This all kicked off with an experiment one of her volunteers started during their weekend shift. A volunteer by the name of Rachel Herder watched a video online of someone incubating and successfully hatching an egg from the grocery store, and she wanted to try it too. One stolen credit card and a few online purchases later, Rachel was set to hatch some eggs. After buying a carton of eggs and finding a secluded place on the property, Rachel's plan was ready to take off. Unfortunately for Rachel, she didn't account for the word pasteurized on the carton. So 20 days later, there was Rachel explaining to Michelle why there was a strange box with a bunch of rotten eggs in it on her property. The experiment was by no means a success. But what it did do was inspire Michelle to branch out her operation to include rescuing livestock from inhumane conditions. She also confiscated the incubator for the possibility of future eggs in need of hatching. A failure for Rachel, but an overall success for the mission of We Are Family. Suddenly, the compound was housing cats, dogs, chickens, cows, horses, goats, parrots, and various rodents. In her own words, Michelle was living her best life, saving animals from bad situations and relocating them to greener pastures, both literal and figurative. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, depending on your opinion of child labor and a lack of direct supervision, Michelle did get herself into trouble with the local government. She was running a large property with many animals and high schoolers, with no full-time workers or people to supervise these students. She also hadn't sought out permission to run this program through the school, other than putting up flyers around the school grounds and accosting kids as they got off of school buses. Back to the fortunate part of the story. Michelle was able to modify her plans and came to an agreement with the city and school to better handle the situation. We Are Family Animal Rescue expanded to include a second location in downtown, which would handle the domestic house pets and nursery side of the animal rescuing, along with administrative business. The South Brown compound would handle overflow and continue working with livestock. In partnership with Orchard Hill Farm, student volunteers would work with the livestock under experienced supervision. Community service hours would be given to volunteers, and during the summer, those volunteers could work part-time at either the farm or at the rescue. Michelle would continue supervising the program and being the face of the operation, but would no longer be able to expand at the drop of a hat into uncharted territory, at least without consulting the necessary channels. She doesn't seem to mind much, and typically gets her way in regard to expansion. She's looking to branch out even further into aquatic and reptilian areas, and given her history, it's a matter of when rather than if. So if you're in Browntown and need a new member for your family, something for your kids to do after school, or you just want to donate your time or supplies, please make sure to visit We Are Family Animal Rescue. Administrative and adoption needs located in downtown on Granite Avenue. Livestock program in South Brown at the end of Red Oak Way.